minutes, and I don't see anything we need to change. So I make a motion.
Okay.
Any second?
Second, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, building codes.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. May's building permit activity was 255 permits issued. $350 was taken in for planned review. $71,360 for permit fees. $8,025 for plumbing permits. $930 for gas permits, for a total $80,665. On the back of the report shows our collection, our permit numbers for last year compared to this year. Last year, 57 single-family dwellings in May. This year, 66. 255 total permits this May compared to 282 permits last year. Our totals to the right show that we've issued 298 single-family dwellings this year compared to 284 last year. That's up 14 single-family dwellings. Our total permits 1,196 compared to 1,151 last year, is up 45 total permits. Our next page shows our substandard housing inspections. We performed 225 inspections in May with 18 new cases. Our totals for the year, 733 inspections with 66 new cases. And last page is our development tax collection. Building Codes Department took in $365,250. Planning Department took in $91,500 for a total of $456,750. To the far right is our total collected, $4,701,750. A breakdown of where the most activity was. The next charts down from that in May. Murfreesboro City was our largest collection of 319,500. There was about 114 apartments in the Casey Lane area for the month of May that we collected on. So more apartments. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody got any questions on it?
I got a question, and
Okay.
it might be academic here. On the first page, your plumbing of 65. Let's see, you got 7725. How many plumbing how much, what I'm trying to ask, I guess, is how much are you charging per plumbing per house? Or?
Our additions are $75 and our total single-family dwellings are $125.
125.
And
Okay.
then, of course, we've got the commercial collections also that
Okay.
fall under that category also.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I move to approve his report.
Second.
Need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Planning.
Good evening, Commissioners. Hello, Doug. Everybody's doing well today. Don't have just a whole lot for your consideration tonight. The first item is our available lot inventory. You'll see on the page 404 of the report that I gave to you, it's on your iPads. You'll see we have a total available lot inventory current as of the end of May of this year of 601. You'll see that that's down from this point last year, 673. It's up slightly from last month. I think last month was about 593. We've seen a little bit of increase in the last 2 months, actually. Again, this kind of goes back to what I told you before, that we're seeing more and more subdivisions going from the preliminary stage to the final plat stage and then being recorded. So we're seeing more and more lots being added to the inventory. So although there were a number of permits that were issued, there were about, on this list at least, which we tracked 3 lots or greater on this list, we saw an increase of about 57 lots or so. So there's more lots being added to the inventory is what it boils down to. So this isn't unexpected as far as I'm concerned. I still think we're going very well as far as the permits that David just talked about. As far as the year-to-date totals, we're still looking pretty good. But I expect to see more and more fluctuation in this as we go forward, because we've got so many in the pipeline that eventually they're going to be recorded and they want to be sold. So we're going to see some up and down with that. So that's to be expected, I think, at this point. So if there's no other questions on that, and again, the last 2 pages of that report, you'll see those plats that haven't been recorded. Those are the ones in the pipeline. We have over 2,400 lots in some point of approval in the process right now. If there's no other questions about that, we'll go on to the public hearing report that I'll have for next week's meeting. We have 2 items for public hearing. Neither one of them is a rezoning. They're both ordinance amendments. The first one concerns some changes to the zoning ordinance regarding the quorum and voting procedures for the Board of Zoning Appeals. As you have been made aware, the Tennessee State Legislature passed an amendment to the state law which concerned the permitted makeup of county boards of zoning appeals. The original law for counties like Rutherford County allowed a Board of Zoning Appeal, BZA, of either 3 or 5 members. The law that was passed, the amendment, allows counties to have a Board of Zoning Appeal either 5, 7, or 9. Of course, with the continued growth in Rutherford County, the adoption of our new ordinance, we're seeing more and more responsibility being shifted to the Board of Zoning Appeals. We're seeing the complexity of those applications increase as well. Our current board makeup is 5 members, regular members with 2 alternates. At your May 12th, 2016 meeting just last month, you passed a resolution changing that number from 5 regular members and 2 alternates to 7 regular members with no alternates to take effect October 1st of this year. What this ordinance amendment will do is change the section 1405H1. You'll see the current language there. It's older language that deals with the board in its current configuration. 3 members to constitute a quorum, and then a concurring vote of at least 3 members to deny or grant any application. What we're proposing to do is shift that language really to what's in the bylaws for the Planning Commission, where it says a quorum, which would be a majority of membership, shall be present to transact official business of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and approval of a simple majority of those present shall be required to pass a motion unless otherwise provided in this ordinance. This language is more generic and would allow the board to be however many number that if that were to change in the future. For instance, if the board decided to make that a 9-member BZA as opposed to a 7-member BZA, this language would still apply to that. So really this is what I call more of a housekeeping amendment, just to allow the number of the BZA members to determine the quorum that's already there. So is there any questions on that? It's kind of a long way around trying to explain what it was, but essentially it's just a housekeeping amendment. Since we're changing from 5 regular members to 7, this will allow that to take place. If not, we'll go ahead and go on to the second ordinance amendment. This deals with the removal of automobile or vehicle repair from prohibited activities list for the major home-based businesses. On your iPads, you'll see there's a little cheat sheet in there, kind of gives you the regulations for minor and major home-based businesses. We're just dealing with the major home-based business at this point. Just to give you a little background on why this amendment came forward, we recently responded to a county resident, county staff, who'd been approved back in 2005 under our old ordinance for a conditional use permit to run a car repair business out of their home. The business was started but was ultimately discontinued soon afterwards, and due to that, his conditional use permit expired long before we ever updated the code that we are under now. Since that time, of course, the county has adopted a new zoning ordinance, and that ordinance does not allow automobile or vehicle repair as a home-based business. This resident inquired about the steps to possibly reestablish the business. They wanted to go ahead and try to go back into business, but since his conditional use permit had expired, the only way he could do that was to rezone the property to a commercial designation, which would allow that. Again, we do, in our zoning ordinance, we classify home-based businesses as either major or minor. The minor home-based businesses can be approved administratively by staff. They don't require a public hearing. Major home-based businesses do require approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals. There are certain uses that you'll see on that sheet that's included with your agenda packets that are not allowed as either minor or major home-based businesses, excuse me, and automobile and vehicle repair is one of those uses. We talked to the applicant about it and then ended up approaching the Planning Commission to ask them if they'd be comfortable about allowing that particular item, automobile vehicle repair, to be removed from the prohibited list from major home-based businesses only. We would still keep it under the minor home-based business label. The Planning Commission felt that it may not be appropriate in every situation, but a property owner on a larger tract, kind of in the middle of a more rural area, may be able to operate in such a manner that they're not disturbing their neighbors. But they felt comfortable with allowing the Board of Zoning Appeals to make that determination on a case-by-case basis. So all this amendment is doing is on that list of prohibited activities for major home-based businesses under F there on the, I guess that's the second page of that cheat sheet, you'll see the following activities shall not be approved as major home-based businesses by the Board of Zoning Appeals. All this amendment would do would be to cross that one out, automobile vehicle repair. The application then would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the BZA would be the ones to make that determination as to whether or not they felt it was appropriate for that area. We do not propose taking that off of the minor home-based business. I don't think that's a use that should be approved administratively. That should have to go to the board. So the only change we're making, and which were, both of these amendments were recommended unanimous approval the last time I talked about it, in this one, would just remove it from the major home-based business prohibited activities. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
If there was a complaint, that would go to Mr. Jones' office?
Yes, sir.
And he would,
Right, usually, or him, or it would come to us maybe, and then we refer it down to our zoning enforcement officials, which are under David's office,
Okay.
correct?
And how much of a buffer on each side or in the back would there be for homes? I mean,
Well, there's not really any kind of a buffer now. The board, you're talking like a landscape strip or
right,
something
well,
like that?
I'm just talking about being in a subdivision, how far would the next house on each side need to be?
Well, it depends really on the size of the lot. The setbacks in just a traditional zone subdivision, say RM or RL, you're looking at a minimum 10-foot side setback and a minimum 20 feet on the rear. Now, most houses aren't built right up to those lines, so I mean, it can vary pretty widely. But again, this may not be a use that you want to see necessarily in the subdivision.
Right.
The person who contacted us actually has got property, I think he's got about 2 or 3 acres, and he has a shop set up for it. I mean, it's the same shop he would have had he been in operation all these years. But, and he's along a 5-lane road, so it might not be as big of an issue there compared to a situation where if you're in a subdivision, you have maybe a half-acre lot. and
But
you've got
somebody
surrounding
from a
land.
subdivision could petition to get one,
Yes, sir, they could.
okay?
Right. I mean,
So
this would give
we're-
them that ability.
We're
to-
taking that chance.
Right, but at that point, we just tell them, it's, they'd have the same burden of proof to establish that they can meet those criteria as anybody would. So, I mean, this isn't a situation where, it's not like a rubber stamp thing
Yeah.
where they do it and it's automatically approved. I mean, they have to prove they meet the standards and, take the chances as anybody going to a board would.
Okay, thank you.
Does an automotive paint shop fall under this?
I think it would. Automotive, any kind of vehicle repair, I think they might have like a small painting area or something like that. If it's just a paint shop specifically, I don't know if it falls under vehicle repair, automobile repair necessarily, because it's a little bit different in that sense. But something like that, I still think would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Because if you look under the minor home-based business standard, which is the first category, there's a kind of a disclaimer there. It says, recognize that this list may not be totally inclusive. The planning director shall make the determination of whether an unlisted business is similar to any listed prohibited use. I would think that would be close enough to automobile vehicle repair that I wouldn't be comfortable doing that administratively. I'd make that go to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
What if the business was several miles down the road and the work was being done at another location?
As far as,
The paint and repair. They weren't actually being sold there, just the
Mhm.
work being.
well, in my mind, I mean, they're still doing the work there. And interestingly enough, I ran into a situation not unlike that not too long ago. And we're making him go to the board for that. Not for, I don't think he does paint necessarily, but vehicle repair and things like that.
Thank you.
But as we stand right now, vehicle and automotive repair is not allowed at all, right?
It's a home-based business, correct.
Right.
If somebody comes in and says, I want to repair cars out of my home,
Yeah.
I just tell them they can't do it. They have to,
Okay.
or they have to rezone the property, which most of the time, candidates like that aren't going to make good rezoning applications because they're generally one small piece of property in the middle of a residential area, and to rezone one parcel, that's not good planning practice, in my opinion, in that situation.
Yeah.
And it's not a conditional use permit, it's a reason. Or-
It's called a special exception.
Special exception.
It
So
pretty much
doesn't-
is.
Does it go with the deed? Does it travel with the land if it sells?
If it sells, it travels with the land. Now, the Board of Zoning Appeals has conditioned expiration of special exceptions in the past. That can happen. If they don't, then yes, it would travel with the land. And if somebody else wanted to operate under those same parameters that were approved, they could. But it doesn't give them carte blanche to start another type of business, totally different type business than what was approved. Like if he wants to do an automobile repair, person A comes in and wants to do automobile repair, and they set, say, hours of operation, those kind of things at the Board of Zoning Appeals. They sell the property, and then, person B comes in and says, well, I want to operate some sort of a walk-in bakery or something like that out of my house. They would have to go back to the board for an amendment at that point. We wouldn't let them just carry that over.
I'm kind of surprised that it passed 9-0. There was motivation previously to not allow automobile repair, vehicle repair as a home business, period. And one request is changing the whole process.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
surprised.
well, let me go back a little bit with the history of when we updated the zoning ordinance. Of course, the home-based business standards pretty much were in existence pretty much as is the way they are, and we just kind of transferred them over to that. At the time when they looked at this, I don't remember if we actually specifically discussed automobile vehicle repair, but I think what happens over time, this is just part of how a resolution or an ordinance like this evolves. It was just one request. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, we get several people that ask us these type of questions, and I would be more comfortable with this approach than I would be saying just allowing it by right and just allowing someone to do a automobile repair out of their home as a home-based business. I would rather have the Board of Zoning Appeals at least have a say in it. That way the people can come and say, this is how I plan on meeting your ordinance requirements, than just to say you just plainly can't do it and you have to rezone your property. So when we did these home-based business standards, when we did the research, there are some municipalities and counties that don't even have a list like this. Some just pretty much whatever business that they want to do, they can bring to the board. Doesn't mean they're going to approve it.
Just a case by case.
It's a case-by-case basis. Some did it, some didn't. We just decided to do it in this case when we created these. And like I said, this was in existence prior to the new ordinance taking effect. We just kind of transferred it over. But I think there was a general consensus among the commission, and Mr. Cush not being present, he could speak to that as well. But I think there are some of them that preferred the conditional use permit approach, the way we used to do it, because it allowed more of a case-by-case basis at the planning commission. So they see this as kind of almost a compromise in a sense. Okay, take it to the Board of Zoning Appeals, at least you have an opportunity to make your case to somebody rather than just us saying, no, you can't do it. So I think that was kind of their motivation.
Does the conditional use permit not go with the land?
It would have, under the old code,
Yeah.
conditional use permits went with the land.
Still go,
Yeah,
okay.
the conditional use permits and special exceptions really are pretty much one and the
Okay.
same. The state law uses special exception in the language, which is why we use it.
I'm just a little uncomfortable with this. It just seems like kind of a less sophisticated way of progress as opposed to otherwise. I'm just surprised that we're going that direction as opposed to requesting a rezoning to light commercial or whatever
Mhm.
currently allow. What does currently allow automobile repair? Light commercial or light industrial?
Core repair, well, it's commercial services or above, I believe. Shared servicing. It's allowed by special exception in commercial neighborhood, which is the most restrictive of the three commercial zones, but then permitted by right in the commercial services and commercial general, and then in the industrial zones. So they would have to go with a rezoning of commercial neighborhood for that, at the very least.
And
again,
that can be done on one tract?
can.
Commercial neighborhood can be
Yes.
one
It can.
half acre, 10, whatever, just.
I mean, yes, now, like I said, that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you have someone in the middle of a residential subdivision that wants to do that, is it good planning practice to rezone one piece of property in the middle of a residential subdivision? You know, I don't think I could recommend approval of that.
It can be. I mean, I've even voted for that in some circumstances, so
Well,
I.
yeah, but
I
like a
kinda-
half acre lot, I don't think we really have many of
We did
those.
21 acres, I
Right,
believe. the one
yeah,
I did.
something like that.
Okay, all right.
Now, the vehicle repair wording, that would prohibit, say, 5-ton, 10-ton trucks.
Well, it doesn't really, it doesn't go that specific with it.
It has some axle, 2 axle, 3
Two
axle.
axle.
Well,
and
that's
three
with,
axle.
right,
Just
well, with
limits
the,
how many.
well, that's
But you could
dealing
have
with,
10-ton,
that's dealing with work vehicles on the property. Right. I don't know if that's necessarily what they're talking about as far as automobile vehicle repair. That's just saying if you have a business vehicle, this is what it's limited to. So it's kind of two different parts of that. Now, if somebody wanted to come and say, I wanted to repair those type of vehicles, of course, that's part of their application, and the board would weigh that as part of everything else that they were considering.
You know, a lot of times I see the creepy cruds get into a business, you know, they start out at automobiles and their brother-in-law brings a bigger truck over, and before you know it, you get bigger and bigger and bigger, and, you know, neighbors throw up their hands saying, well, I don't know what to do.
Mhm.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I know
And
exactly
they're,
what you're saying.
they sit there frustrated.
Mhm.
And I've just seen too many neighborhoods that you ride through and there's big old trucks sitting in the driveway.
Mhm. Well, and to me, that goes back to how the application is presented to staff. I mean, if it's presented to staff that we're just gonna work on passenger vehicles, and next thing you know, they have 18-wheelers in there, I mean, that's in violation of what they were approved to do. So
But-
I think at that point, we would have
But
cause to
you,
go back.
in your department and David in their department, don't go looking for it.
Well, that's correct. I mean, obviously,
They
there's
have to
only-
be reported, and like I said, a lot of times neighbors don't know what to do.
Mhm.
You know,
A lot of neighbors I deal with aren't real bashful about it. So, yeah, the ones that I talk to, they're not too bashful about calling, which is fine, but,
Nothing else, they'll call their commissioner once.
yeah, and then I'll get a call from one of you, and then we'll look into it, of course.
Oh, that'd be
Chain
great. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'll move that we approve his report. Second.
Motion and second. Anybody got anything else? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
No,
Great, thank you.
one opposed.
One opposed.
Thank you very much.
Solid waste,
Let the highway department go next.
okay.
Talk about Greg when he's out of the room.
He
Good
did
evening.
good tonight.
He was good, his faith the Eagle Center for us did a really good job, looks good.
Most people don't wait for me to leave before they. How's everyone tonight?
Good.
I have just a little budget amendment. I have to move some money around inside our current budget. It doesn't change our bottom line any, but we've had a increase in our casualty and liability insurance, so Since it's self-funded, we had to transfer some money from one account to another, so that's what this represents.
Your reserve has to be $147,003.
Right now it does because of some liability, pending liability that we have.
10,633 plus the 114 is still less than that if you got that money somewhere else. The
Yes.
21.8. Okay.
Yes.
I move that we approve the amendment to transfer these funds as submitted.
Second.
Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Nipper?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
That's all I have for you tonight. Does anyone have anything for me?
Any update on the bridge on Wheatley Lane?
Yes, sir, there is. We had a pre-construction meeting 2 weeks ago, and there has been some activity. They have, the construction company that has the contract for that has gone out and marked some locations that they're gonna be installing some signs. So technically it's underway. So as we move forward here, you'll see more and more, but yes, it's underway.
Okay.
It's underway, and if you do get calls about that, I know you very connected to that area. I will say that the plan is to maintain one lane of traffic at all times during that rehabilitation project, but that will come with some inconvenience to our citizens, because there will be a timed red light that stages traffic through that work zone, and it will be a 24-hour deal. It will not be just daytime only. It will be overnight stuff, for extended periods of time while they repair one side of the bridge, and then they'll shift the traffic over to the repaired side, to work on the other side. So it will be inconvenient, but it's better than the other option. So closing it all together and doing the whole bridge at one time. The way that thing will work, the work zone will be of substantial distance, and the speed limit will be reduced to a point that it will take, if you can imagine, a red light at each end of the bridge. Of course, it'll be a little further back than that, but it will take a fair amount of time for traffic to clear. So both lights will be red at the same time, and that causes frustration for people, but it's just necessary. So you have to kind of allow for the person that actually does go through there at the adjusted speed limit to clear that work zone. Hopefully, people will be understanding that it has to be done.
Well, I think everybody out there is looking forward to having the bridge repaired.
Yeah, I do too, but until it inconveniences them, and then some of them will change their opinion of that.
Never then, ain't it?
Yes. Anything else?
Thanks,
All
Greg.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Solid waste.
How are y'all this evening?
Good. See you guys.
We got quite a few things we can talk about. We'll start with landfill report as usual.
Thank you.
Landfill's staying fairly busy. Of course, times are picking up a little bit because of the summertime. But if you can see there at the bottom of the sheet, revenue's up quite a bit from months before. And we did do a contract rebid, and our contractor will start supposedly July 1.
Same person.
No.
Tell me about that, please.
Can you tell who got the contract or not?
Yeah. There's a local company that got it, Melton got it. Our current contractor sent us a letter that he wasn't gonna be able to continue the service, but said that he would continue working through, it's a 90-day in advance. Through July 1, if we didn't have anybody in place by then, he would continue until we got somebody in place. So that put us in a bidding situation, and we sent out 11 possible bidders. I got with our consultants in Nashville to see who would possibly bid on it, and we wound up with only 3 bids.
3's good though. It's a good comparison.
Yeah. Well, we sent it out to companies that do it regularly, to the big landfills, just to see if they would send us a bid. They didn't. But the way we're so small, it's something they didn't want to do with.
I think Larry would be very competitive and I think do you a very good job.
Ready to go to the convenience center report? Convenience centers are busy as well. Of course, we're weather related. Saturday it rained, so it slowed us down just a little bit. The week before that was Memorial Day. Of course, we couldn't run because the landfill was closed. So it took us all week to basically get caught up. We started Tuesday morning after Memorial Day with 118 loads to haul. So we got that taken care of, and then the rain on the weekend helped keep it a little bit slow. We started yesterday with 77. But that's normal. Tuesdays are busiest day. We'll normally haul less loads on Monday than they generate on Tuesday. So it's very common for us to start, like yesterday was 77 loads. We may have 80 something to start tomorrow with. I haven't gotten the calls yet, so it makes it a little bit tough, but we've been doing that for a long time. Have questions often about recycling, and I came from the industry side, so we used to track everything. And the Solid Waste Directors Association knows that I track everything, so they asked me to put some numbers together, and this is just for one convenience center. I'm working on the whole sheet for all of them, but this one just happens to be Automobile because it was the top one on the list. And if you can see on that page that I handed out to you, scrap metal does not, at the time of this last month, does not pay for the trucking costs. You actually lose money to haul scrap metal. But if you look at that number for where it says Middle Point, that's what it would cost you to haul it to Middle Point and pay for it. So you actually save money. You don't make money, but it costs less money to haul metal. If you move over to aluminum cans, you make some money. If you look at cardboard, you actually make some money. If you look at glass, we have to haul that to Rivergate. Right now we're paying $44 a ton to dispose of it. So we lose $279 to recycle glass. And in plastic, the reason for that one actually being the less haul, or it costs us a little bit to haul that plastic, but it takes longer to haul it to the plastic recycler than it does the landfill. Our trucking cost for last year, did the calculation, it's $114.14 an hour. So that's $1.90.23 a minute to run one of our trucks. And the industry that I came from, when we priced hauling loads, we priced it by the minute. Of course, times have changed and the price has gone up since what we were doing years ago when I was with that company, but that's how I came up with these prices, the same type of calculations. And on the very bottom, if you'll look, we recycle electronic scrap. And this is the last load that was hauled last month. It was 10.26 tons. Of course, we had to pay to dispose of televisions and monitors, and we're charging the residents that fee when they come in. And we do get a little money for the other recyclable materials, but that they deduct the money they owe us and then send us a bill for the remainder. So that was almost $3,500 for that one load. So we're on track to spend close to $100,000 again in televisions.
Now, is that televisions and a flat fee? Okay.
Televisions and monitors, the contract that we have, they charge us 24 cents a pound.
24 cents a pound,
And the way we calculated to do it, to make it easy for us, because it's all about us anyway, is round that up to 25 for an easy figure. We did not want to deal with coins, and we did not want to deal with $1 bills. So the number we use is $5 per 20 pounds. They'll set it on the scales. If your items weigh between 0 and and $20 or 20 pounds, it costs you $5.
$5.
21 to 40 is 10, right on up the line. Sunday at church, had a lady said, "Hey, I can't get to Haley Road, can you take care of my television?" Yes, ma'am. "Oh, I've got it in my trunk." This thing didn't weigh 10 pounds. And I put it in there, and I've got the receipt out in the car. I paid to get rid of it, $5.
Cost you $5.
Mhm.
Does Republic charge you for putting a TV in their landfill?
No,
No charge whatsoever?
we don't get charged for anything we put in the landfill.
And you said this is gonna cost us $100,000 a year projected on the TVs and electronics?
And it has been. We've been doing this for 2 or 3 years already.
So based on a minimum 5 years left at the landfill, we're gonna spend $500,000 to keep from putting those televisions in.
Some landfills will not accept them and some will. A lot of it depends on what's been put in the landfill previously. They have to do all their monitoring just like we do at our landfill. So if they're getting leachate and gas hits that's pertaining to lead, that leaded glass in that screen is probably what's causing a lot of it. So it depends on how much monitoring they're doing and how much of a hit they're getting. There's some landfills that actually take it because they're not having a problem with it.
Could ours take it?
Probably.
Do we see a lot of people bringing their TVs there, or is there, just 1 or 2 a day, or
No, we get a lot of
we've
televisions.
got a lot of televisions?
It slowed down just a little bit. We were shipping out a 53-foot tractor trailer load per week. Now we're shipping one out about every week and a half.
Week and a half.
So it slowed down some.
Okay.
And we still get the old console televisions like we saw when we were children. The good thing about seeing those come in, they've lasted for years, a whole lot longer than the new ones. We get a lot of new stuff in there. And they're just making it to where it's not repairable.
Yeah, I know. I have a friend that just brought in 3, and he said it cost him about $100.
Depends on the weight.
So,
A lot of people in Rutherford County, a lot of TVs, changing all around.
And talked with one of our metal recyclers last week. He called me. EPA is, sometimes does things that hurts more than it helps. Part of what we do at our recycle centers, if you have a refrigerator that goes out and you want to bring it to us, used to, we just take the refrigerator, and then several years ago, we'd say, no, the Freon has to be drained out of it and captured correctly and all that kind of stuff. And EPA changed that to where the recyclers couldn't accept it that way, had to leave it intact. If it comes in where the line's been cut, and then that item has to be trashed instead of recycled. Now they've changed to where they have to report how much gas they pull out and keep a record of it and all that kind of stuff. So it's gonna cost them about $15 in actual cost to do all that. So they're gonna start charging us that, they've gotta pass the fee along. So now if we send a load of metal with a refrigerator in it, they'll take whatever our tonnage is, deduct that $15 per television, and we'll get paid for the rest of it.
do you see any paints, varnish, any type of chemicals in the landfill or in our dumpsters?
They're not supposed to be in there. Sometimes the government makes rules that you don't understand why. Household, the chemicals that you have under your kitchen sink are exempt. So if you throw those away, then you're technically allowed to. But we have the household hazardous waste collection trying to prevent you from doing that.
Right.
We could have had 2 this year. They had a little extra money at the state, and they said, "You want to have 2?" I said, "No." "Well, why not? We're going to give you 2. I said, "Yeah, you'll do that for a year or 2, then you'll cut it back to 1, and then we'll have a problem again. We'll just stick with 1.
I was wondering, if, as we have a site to collect TVs, would there be availability to drop off your chemicals, your paints and stuff there?
There is. They've got a grant that you can apply for. The 4 largest cities in the state have a household hazardous waste collection that the state of Tennessee gave them some money to help get it started. I think Williamson County is the next one in line. We have not applied for it. Joey Smith is solid waste director for the city, and he and I sat down and did some calculations on what it cost what TDEC pays the contractors each time that we have a collection. It would be cheaper and better for Rutherford County to pay that contractor. You know, TDEC pays them once a year. We could pay them 3 more times a year, do it once a quarter, than it would be to have the actual facility. Because if you have the facility, you've got to have the trained personnel on hand. You know, the HAZWOPER training and all that kind of stuff, which that's gonna get into some money. Plus, you've got to have the facility. So a lot of the people that, the counties that have taken those grants have cut their hours of operation way back. They only take what's generated within the county. You know, they're not outside of the county stuff. So it's not working very well. So as long as TDEC's gonna sponsor one a year, that's the cheapest and the best way for us to go.
Yeah, but you know, people sell and move their homes and they have a lot of chemicals, a lot of paints, all of that, and they don't know what to do with it, and a lot of times they get thrown in the garbage can.
On latex paint, that's what most people have. There's not a lot of oil-based paint used anymore. But latex paint, you dry that yourself. They no longer accept it as hazardous waste collection, and we don't accept it either. We looked at trying to dry it for people. I got irritated at TDEC. At our C&D landfill, you can tear down a home and bring it to that landfill and we will bury it. But if I go to the city of Murfreesboro's mulch facility and pick up a container load of mulch, pour paint in it and let it dry, that's now considered a special waste and it cannot go into our landfill. And you know, what's the difference in a painted wood chip and a painted tubicle?
Yeah.
You know, so that's the reason we don't dry it. The easiest way to dry it is to open the lid, stir up the paint just like you're gonna paint on the wall. On a day like today, pour you out a piece of plastic, pour it on there just like you pour it in the paint roller pan. It will seek its own level and it will dry in an hour. And once it's completely dry, you can roll that plastic up and put it in with your trash. The landfill can take the dried paint, they can't take the liquid form. Also with the cans, leave the lids off the cans. That way if you bring them to us at one of our recycle centers, the center attendant can look, yep, it's dry, throw it right over there.
You know
All
that,
base paint, we have a collection for that. We do that on the 4th Saturday in March and 4th Saturday in September.
Yep. Well, you know, I'd say that 99% of the people don't know that about the paints. You know, that how to get it dry and put it in the landfill. So.
You can use all dryer or mix stuff with it and try to dry it up faster, but the easiest way that we found, we did it at home.
Thank you.
I had a friend that's a contractor and I called him one Saturday evening and said, you got any paint cans? Yes. How many you want? I said, well, I want a few. I want them, you know, almost full to almost empty. So he brought me 12, all different levels. And what I did was I've got a open air pole barn type building. So I opened all the cans and set them to where they could not get rained on. And let them sit. Well, you know, latex paint, when it sits with the lid open for a while, it'll crust on the top. So every few days I'd go out there and stir it up. It took, for the fullest can, took 1 year for it to dry that way.
Wow.
So I suggest not trying that. It will dry, but it takes a while.
Well, thank you very much.
What is your assessment of this spreadsheet? Just
The recycling is actually worth it. Where the Solid Waste Directors Association was going with it is TDEC is working on their 10-year plan. And there's some things in it that we, as solid waste directors, we really don't like. And one of those is they're looking at upping the percentage rate from 25 to 35, maybe even 50. So when TDEC looks at something like that, they don't look at operational cost. Even our budget, the recycle is in a different budget from the convenience center, which has the trucks in it. So the two budgets don't really line up. So I can pull those together, and that's what I've done here. Right now, glass is the biggest loser for us. But if and when we put in the tires facility in Smyrna, what I plan to do, and I've already got contacts made, is we'll have concrete bunkers and we'll take our glass, we don't want to take any other county glass, and put it in the concrete bunkers. We'll have the litter crews run by there once a week or so and pick out the big obvious things. You don't have to get everything out of it. That company, while they're dealing with the tires, will have a big rubber tire loader and there's a set of scales there. So they can run by with that big loader, set the bucket down on the pile, and just kind of crunch it up to densify the glass. And then there's a company out of Jackson that he's already told me they'll come and get it. He'll pay the trucking for it. And he said if it's a very good quality, which I think ours would be better than what he's accustomed to, he may actually pay a few cents. Now, we'll still have the trucking cost involved and everything else, so we won't make any.
To the facility, to our facility.
No, we'll
is
carry it to our
cost.
facility.
Yeah, that's our cost, but
Right.
he'll pick it up.
He'll come pick
At
it
his
up, he'll
cost.
use that big loader, load it on tractor
Yeah,
trailer.
if
he'll
we
take
load it
to
for him
Jackson.
through this other.
And what he does with it is grinds it up into sand and sells it as sandblasting sand. Very good. So that's our best option if we can make all those items come together. Any other questions on that part? We have a few other things we need to talk about. We need to do a budget amendment in our,
You might wanna approve the report.
Okay, we need to go ahead and approve the report.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
we have, it's actually two budget amendments in our litter crew budget. We've got one full-time litter crew driver and one part-time litter crew driver. And we're not gonna have enough money to pay him for the rest of the year, so we need to take some money out of the gasoline line item, which we do have extra in there because the fuel price has been low. We need, to move $1,835 to get us through the year on him. And the other one is our communications line item. When I was talking to the finance department, they said, why is your phone bill so big? I said, we've got 17 locations, each of them have a telephone, so, and when you have all those lines, it costs a little money, so. And just about every year, we have to adjust the communications line item, but that's what these two budgets are budget amendments for, and they're coming out of the existing budget.
Anybody got any questions? No? None, we'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the budget.
I'll second that.
Call roll on this one.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Nipper?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
The next item, we need to do a resolution, the same one we do every year. We're actually a little bit later on this one than normal. Is for the TDOT litter grant. Rutherford County receives $95,100 in grant funds. Those funds are to help pick up the litter on the side of the road. And it's also to have the education coordinator in there and the education side of it. So we need to approve this where we can send it on to Nashville and make sure we get our litter grant for this coming budget year.
Motion to approve. Second.
Is this go budget?
Yes, into the budget and the commission.
Need to call roll on this.
You can do it by acclamation.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And the next thing, we didn't send it on to the iPods or iPads, whatever those things are till today, so hopefully you have it. It's a memorandum of understanding between the city and the county. Do y'all have that?
Do you?
We brought it forth before and you blessed the concept, but we didn't have a dollar figure with it. The one that, you have it on there?
Yeah, I got
The
it.
one that you have on there is the one that the city of Murfreesboro has already passed. We got the
Let's see.
proposals back from 4 companies. We don't, the way we're doing it, we're gonna interview, but we don't know what they're charging. So the city of Murfreesboro's budget, no, not budget, purchasing person opened and looked at the prices. The highest one was $200,000. So if we're splitting the cost between the city and the county, that's $100,000 each. So that would be our cost on this, if we chose the highest. What we're doing on the interview process is trying to pick the one that we think is going to do the best job with us without looking at what it's gonna cost, and then we'll look at the cost later. So the city's already passed this, and what I'd like to do is run this on through and us get it passed as well.
Mayor Burgess, are you in agreement with this?
Yes, yeah, we talked about this earlier, and this is our partnership with the city of Murfreesboro to do this, and
I'll make a
They
motion.
are ready to, at some point soon, they're gonna be ready to pick the consultant that's gonna provide the service, and we need to be able to execute that.
And this has the language that satisfies you that everything we've discussed thus far gets us there. Now, I'll make a motion to
Now,
approve
wait a minute before you do that.
the memorandum when you get done here, perhaps.
We do not have this $100,000 in this coming budget. What we do have in the budget is a line item in the landfill budget for consultant fees, which we already have consultant on board. And we have enough money in there to pay the current consultant. We don't need to do a budget amendment yet, but we will need to do one at some point, probably this fall, to put this money into place. But we can use some of the money that we hadn't spent yet on our consultant.
Will you have any ending fund balance you can use
Oh, yes.
at the end of the year?
Oh, absolutely.
To create, okay.
That's what he's told me about.
Sure.
Well, we know and have known that we're gonna have to spend the money.
Yeah.
We know we're gonna have to do something quickly.
Yeah.
Unless y'all wanna attach $100,000 to this, we'll put it into next year's budget, but.
There were several line items that this year he's chosen not to put these things in the budget, but we would fund them as we go along, because we have the ending fund balance,
That's the best one.
so that you guys would be aware of what's actually happening on a more current basis, you might say.
Part of the reason we did that is with all the upcoming things, with Middle Point gonna close in whatever time that frame that's gonna be, we wanted the county commission to be more keenly aware of what goes on in solid waste and what it costs, and what those costs are probably gonna be in the future. So where we normally would try to put money in and guess what we would need, because this may happen, we didn't do that in this year's budget. When it happens, we have to go out for bid, and then we'll need a budget amendment to go along with it.
And we won't have to pay all of this money up front. It'll only be paid as they do work. So it'll take, who knows how long it'll take them to spend the $200,000. It might be a year, it might be 2 or 3. So it's yet to be determined how much we need in this coming fiscal year, actually.
It's planned to be a 10 to 11 month project, is the plan, and it could go longer.
What would the appropriate action be then? Does this require action?
Just approve this memorandum of understanding, and he'll bring forward, as he doesn't have enough money in his current budget, he'll come back and give you an update on the billing request so that they can put money back into that line item.
Do you have a comment?
Yeah.
So can we make an motion to include the mayor's language?
I was gonna ask.
Do you want that part about the finances?
No, we don't. We just want to tell you that's what's going to
He
happen.
just tell you.
But you-
Okay.
When we come back with the budget amendments, you won't be surprised.
But
We're
we
just
don't-
approving the.
Just approve the memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with the city of Murfreesboro, please.
Second.
Any more questions, John? Not all in favor?
Aye.
And that's all I
The
have.
budget for this.
There's no money here yet, so I don't think there's any.
Mac.
Do or done?
Do not.
Okay.
Your open tops, your compactors take a ton of trash and compact it into 4.2 cubic yards. Your open tops compact that to 13.6. 224% difference in volume. Have you looked at having more compactors? Is it just too capital intensive?
The machine itself costs a little over $20,000, and then the receiver box that hooks up to it is right at $9,000.
You'd have to have a lot of the 9,000s,
Yeah.
correct? Several of those.
And then, and we already have several, but, then you know, we got electricity in the pad, and then a lot of it is space. You know, a lot of the centers that we have that have multiple compactors already in place, very few of them you could put another one without enlarging the center. Mostly what we try to put in the trash compactors are the kitchen style waste, the garbage, that type stuff, and then the bulk items into the open tops. You can put bulk items in a compactor, but your compactability goes way down really quickly.
So we wouldn't gain the full.
You'd have to have some,
13.6.
you'd have to have some boxes a lot bigger than the boxes we got to put
Yeah.
this stuff in those things. These are some big items that come into those open tops.
Okay.
Uh,
This is just the cubic yardage we're hauling
Well, to get-
at $1.90 a minute. If we could reduce our cubic yardage,
Right.
that was just,
To give you a little example that may help you understand, our trash front loader truck that runs the schools will run anywhere from 13 to 18 tons of load. The recycle truck hauling the paper and the plastics and the metal and all that, it'll do good to get 9 tons on there. It's just that the items are not as compacted.
Okay.
So when you
So
get the
that's
rougher.
not a good ratio, just glancing at this at the surface.
Right.
Thank you for the explanation.
Where the
Understand.
recyclables go, do they have to be intact or could they be compact?
They can be compacted.
Your electronics, aren't you palleting them and putting them on a box trailer?
Yes, now they can't be compacted. What happens with those is once they get to their location, they've separated by items, and they have a lot of labor force that actually manually dismantles those and gets all the different components. There's a lot of different types of metal, even gold. And electronics, not a very large amount, but that's what they capture.
I know why you're wanting to recycle, you're pushing for the future because it's coming very fast. But do you think the recycle of electronics for Rutherford County is worth $500,000 in the next 5 years
I'm not
versus putting them in the landfill?
I'm not sure we can put them in the landfill. We haven't for quite some time. The state really doesn't want them in there. If somebody slips in and puts one in an open top and we don't see it, we don't get a phone call
You
from
told
them.
me a while ago we could put anything in the Republic landfill.
No, we can put anything. We can put only what they can accept, but they don't charge us for it. But there's, like the electronics, they wouldn't want the loads of them that we have, so they would probably reject those loads. They can't take hazardous waste and some of those things.
I tell you what, though, take your trash down to Main Street here at the dump site. I took a 5 foot by 8 foot trailer in there. Those boys took more off and set it beside the fence than they threw in the trash can.
We don't allow that at ours.
They recycle, or they do something with it.
County's got a mean old director, they won't let them do it.
Do you have liability or something to that? Is there a liability or?
The state rules and regulations on having convenience centers, one of those things is no scavenging, and that would fall under the scavenging rule. They've been doing that down there for a long time. We actually have an agreement with the city of Murfreesboro, the 2 solid waste departments, to put a metal recycling container down there.
They could,
And we've never put it down there just because they're in that habit. So
they can furnish a house, I mean, as much as they take off.
Got a little flea market going there.
Well, back when it first started, what they could get was part of their pay, was it not?
Absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Yes, when it first started, there was one gentleman that literally bought him a new Ford truck off the aluminum cans. He had saved, I don't know how long it took him to save them, but
Do y'all allow tips to?
we discourage it. And the reason for that is, it's nice to give them something at Christmas or something like that. But the perception, if you go in there and hand them something and then somebody's gonna say, well, he's paying him to let him dump extra stuff or whatever. So
Yeah.
it creates a problem.
Well, I've seen it down there, so I didn't know.
Anything else? Y'all gentlemen have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we just need to,
voted.
we
We
just
voted
need to
on.
adjourn.
I move again.